abusers in the name of protecting their victims. Chandra Author is a full-time rescue dog and cat mom. By day, she's an IT professional, and by night, she's a writer. She writes science fiction, fantasy, and historical fiction, full-length novels, flash fiction, and everything in between. When Sandra isn't writing, you can find her poring over a book, playing computer games, drinking coffee, and sometimes all three at once. Sandra is joined tonight by Zara Hoffman, the founder of the Inimitable Books and a distribution client of Simon & Schuster. Yes.
Yes. For your solo debut, you've co-written before.
Yes.
Nonfiction. You've written fiction that hasn't been published yet. How does this feel different from the 1,000 words vouchers that you've shared?
I think with 1,000 words, it was easier because it wasn't like my story so much. And I've been writing flash fiction for a really long time prior to that, so I didn't have to think as much about like the story structure. This was more personal story that I've been kind of doing for a while. And the details of writing it were very different than writing and editing nonfiction.
Yeah, I mean, also for the prompt books, you had one or two sentences max per prompt,
Yes,
and then of course the instructions.
right. And with the prompt books, you think about how you would complete the sentence, but you don't actually have to complete the sentence. You leave that for the person who's using the prompt book. But you do have to think about how it would fit into a sentence versus with this, it's all of it.
Right. So it is a thriller. So don't tell the on.
Yes.
There we
Okay, there we go.
Okay. So with the thriller, you can't put everything on the page too early for your readers, because then there's no suspense, there's no thrilling aspect to a thriller.
Yeah.
How did you decide on what to hold back on versus what to get out there early to establish the story?
So I started by writing everything by hand in a notebook. That way it was easier to move things around and figure out what I wanted where. And sometimes I
And also no AI.
yes, also no AI. But I also, it was easier to visualize and break it down into chunks, things that I didn't necessarily, I wasn't sure where it fit in the story, but I knew that it needed to go in the story. And so writing it all by hand helped me kind of see that in my mind and then be able to move it to the section. I could, for the second draft specifically, start to go in, look what I'd written by hand, transcribe it, and then add details and move parts around as I needed to.
With the prologue, you throw us right into the action. In media res, my favorite way to start a book as a reader, as a writer, as an editor. It is something that happens years before the main book. What made you decide to start there rather than just start with your protagonist, Abby?
I actually started the story 2 or 3 times before I went back and started with the prologue. I realized there was a certain amount of background that was needed for Abby, and there wasn't a clean way to go back and add it in later. And it was easier to do it made more sense to do a prologue and then really be able to fully change voice to Abby and not have to think about switching back and forth or confusing the reader.
Did you find writing in Beth's voice, almost gave a spoiler, Beth's voice easier than Abby's, or was it about the same?
Writing Beth was like writing flash fiction, actually, because I could think of it in this contained sense. I really just needed to get in, tell a complete story, and make it still satisfying, but have those questions so that when you get into the first chapter, it's kind of left you with something to think about, but nothing that's going to be confusing.
And then by the time you're looping back around to it later in the book, oh, you had that brilliant light bulb moment. There's the link.
Yes.
In the hardcover, we have the exclusive bonus scene that is not in the ebook, is not in the forthcoming audiobook. That is a different point of view. That is not Beth and not Abby. Was that also a feeling of like, oh, it's just flash fiction, it was easy, or was there a little bit more pressure because you knew that readers were going to have read through the whole book, have a certain image of this character in their head, based on Abby's memories and thoughts and things like that, and then you had to write this bonus scene because I asked for one.
Yeah. I found it challenging in that there's certain parts you really want to make sure are accurate because you can see another point of view, but also there's this aspect of people remember things differently. So there is the flexibility there. The substance of the story is the same, but it gives a really truthful voice to a character who you only see otherwise through Abby's point of view, which is, flawed in some senses.
Yeah.
So I think it was also just a really poignant scene. There's a lot of emotion in it, and
Oh, I mean,
it's kind of a gut punch.
yeah, no, I mean, we had a reader who like reached that part, saw the character, and was like, oh no,
Yeah,
which is the accurate response.
it is. Because it's something that's alluded to, and there's that there's a certain distance of memory, and then actually having to be in that person's
Yeah.
head.
So, speaking of that, in this prologue, we see the aftermath of domestic violence. So there is some distance, and then in the bonus scene, we also see it, also from the victim's point of view. We do not see it from an abuser's point of view at any point, but for most of the rest of the book, the main part from Abby's point of view, we are seeing it happen in real time. We don't have the distance of it already happened. What do you do now, like for Beth, or with the bonus scene where it's like it's happening in the moment for that chapter, but because of the rest of the book, we know it was in the past. So, how do you immerse readers in such an upsetting topic for the duration of a novel without getting burnt out yourself and not completely traumatizing your readers? I mean, you traumatize them with it, but they seem to love you for it, according to the reviews on Goodreads.
Yeah, I think the big thing was I want people to have a voice, so it wasn't just immersing myself in it; it was listening. Things that I've heard, things that have been told to me, things that I know people experience, more universal experiences, whether or not they're acknowledged. And so I wanted to listen. And I know it's like kind of trite to say, listen to your characters, blah, 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 like they are going to lead you. But in this case, I felt like that was really truthful. And then thinking about the people that I'm writing for, my readers, I think they've all had parts of those experiences. And so to identify, like, I see you. I see what's happened, I see what you've been through.
For this project, I know you are very close to one of the Novel's other authors, not the one that you actually co-wrote the flash fiction books with. And I know that she read it. Did you have any other beta readers who helped you shape the story before it got to me? And if you did you were you aware if they had any trauma backgrounds that could help inform their feedback to you, or was it like just read this as someone who I hope for their sake doesn't have trauma and tell me what you think is like a normal reader?
I didn't. I asked people for specific advice in a couple of places. One, funny enough, was golf because I don't know anything about golf.
You asked me and I said, I don't know. My uncle has tried to get me to play golf with him before and I had passed on that.
Yes, I reached out to my co-author on the flash fiction books, Natalie, and I was like, "Hey, please help me."
Because you had said a game of golf was 2 hours.
I
And
think
she
something
laughed.
ridiculous, and she was like, "That's no."
She was like, no, no, no. I mean, I did something similar with you had unfortunately a child victim in this book because that is rampant in the real world. And you had her school schedule, and I was like, this is way too short amount of time to be doing homework if she's as old as you're saying she is, even if she's still very young.
Yeah, I have no idea about homework. I forgot to do any of it.
But you're very good at research, because a lot of people who read the book who talked about the medical stuff mostly so that your character Abby could effectively the abusers. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you plan those things? I know Abby, and by extension, you have to be very much of the punishment to respect the crime. But there's not exactly a lot of uh, biology knowledge needed for crimes, unfortunately, because the abusers aren't exactly targeted in their abuse. They can make broad strokes, much to the horror of their victims and your readers. But Abby's very methodical, and she'll go there if necessary, but she doesn't seem to just be like, I'm just gonna torture the entire movie, minus maybe one, arguably two people.
So I felt like it would be very cliche to do that because I feel like that's in every thriller. It's like how do you make the person talk or like maximum suffering, and it's like that's not what it's about for her. So that wouldn't be her approach. I did think about a few different approaches and what would be necessary for each one, and then I was like, you know what? No, she's gonna figure out something specific. It's gonna be unique. It's also part of the issue with serial killers. The MO is how they usually get caught. So she can't go somewhere and do the same thing ritualistically every time.
She can't have a signature.
Correct. It wouldn't make sense for her, and it would be too easy to track. So there is a system for tracking that across state lines. The FBI has I can't think of the name of it right now. They do have a means of doing that, looking for the modus operandi of each person. So if I put that in, it would be like, well, okay, now how does she stay under the radar? So it has to be different. It has to be something that's almost random, that they're not going to just look and see like, oh, this happens all the time. That was where that part came from, of the necessity of being able to hide. And then the medical part, um, I've always just had a fascination with medicine. I've thought about going into the medical field. Obviously, Abby missed the do no learning part of things, but
Well, we never claimed that Abby went to medical school
Right.
or took the oath. So
right. So I did read a lot of journal articles, but I started with what I thought Abby would do, and then I went in and did research to see how it could be done. Once I knew what I wanted her to do, I'm like, okay, how would she do that without the person expiring before she's ready? Because that's something that she wants to maintain control of. She wants to go through her process and do her thing, and she wants to be the one like, I have power now.
I mean, you have her showing a learning curve a little bit. With the first kill in the book, she's like, "Whoa, I didn't realize that you wouldn't be able to talk." Good to note for the future. During the second kill, she's like, "Oh, I learned this from a previous time. Not gonna make the same mistake again." you don't start out as a killer. It's not covered in the book, but her mentor, was she ever with Abby during like early cases? Because it seems by the time we see Abby, she is a seasoned pro, even if she's like, oh, that's a good thing to know. Always be curious.
I I don't think so. I don't think it was ever something that they did together. Um, I've I've always pictured her mentor as being separate from it, as kind of an enabler. And I think, you know, also with the way it's set up, it's kind of like, M wouldn't go out on the road with James Bond, like when she did, things were going very badly.
Yeah.
So I kind of view her mentor in the same light of like, this is the person that you go to problem solve, to give you feedback, to like help set things up. But when it comes down to it, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And she'll call Abby and be like, that was sloppy, but she's not going to be standing over her shoulder and saying, like, clean that up.
Right.
Okay. I would like to leave time for some questions, but also let's see if anyone in the live stream has been saying hi or asking questions. Oh, we got a lot. People are chatting. Okay. Regina is here. Becca, you're throwing 3 triplets. Said hi. Paul is here. JC. Natalie. Gray is here, who said my book just came in this afternoon. Can't wait to read it.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so to the people on the live stream, if you would like to leave any questions in chat, we'll try to get to them. But before I hand it over to people in the room, is there anything I haven't asked about that you want to talk about?
I think you did really good with the broad questions. I like those.
I'm trying like not to be too repetitive from our other live streams, but also I know some people to have some questions prepared, and like I want to leave the floor open for them to ask those questions. So with that said, would you like to ask a question?
What was your favorite part to writing a character with such a unique brand of justice for an issue that's so relevant today?
I think it was vengeance. It really was nice to be. I feel like there's so many stories told about women, and not a lot of them are told for women. A lot of horrible things happen to women all the time in books, in the real world. And I think we needed a turn. We needed a win on something. And so I wanted to write the win.
Even Kill Bill is has problems.
Yes.
Was Dexter an inspiration for writing this?
I didn't think about it. I had seen some of Dexter a while before, and then I wrote everything, and my partner was like, "Oh, so kind of like a female Dexter," and I was like, "What?"
The first time I saw that on the live stream, I remember everyone being like, female Dexter, hold on, where's the buy button? And I'm like, on our website, as always, thank you for your interest. We've also been calling it ethical vengeance in a lot of our social media captions. You said she helps people meet deadlines.
Yes.
We've said that she helps people permanently retire. I guess I'm just thinking about, we've had a fun time dealing with social media platforms who are maybe trying to censor people, but especially about crimes like these that are also unfortunately very real and maybe a little bit too prevalent in a certain set of files. Like, how has that been for you, where you've written this book, people who've read it in advance and are buying it, are loving it, but we're then having to jump through all these hoops to market it?
That's been really weird and kind of uncomfortable, because I feel like all of the ways that you can, say unalived or ending somebody, like all the ways that you can talk around it. It feels very trite. And I don't love that. But at the same time, you have to, make it so the algorithm won't immediately bury your post.
Yeah.
But then you also see so many people who post about true crime and their platforms blow up and they do really well. And it's like,
What are the rules?
yeah, what's that about?
I mean, we're trying our best as well, but I think also it's towing the line between like, yes, we're using what I think are kind of unserious words such as unalive, because people have been forced into that thanks to censorship, and then knowing we are promoting a book that does not shy away from what happens. It's not like Abby gets a dossier, finds out that there's been abuse, sees hints of it, and then goes in. Like readers really see it.
Yes.
It's not gratuitous. I was very you were actually very careful about that. I didn't actually have to say anything about that. If anything, I was like, can you make this one worse? The punishment, not the crime. And you went there and I was very thankful. But the slight disconnect between the captions and the book, are you ever thinking like, oh, I wish I could just say what it was and it's have it out there?
Absolutely. I do. I think that's one reason I'm very careful to share about the content warnings on my website as well as in the book. I know a lot of people are like, oh, that might be spoilers and things like that. But I think it's so important because of the subject matter, because of the readers I'm writing to and for. I don't want to traumatize anybody again. They've already been through something. It's supposed to be cathartic to read, not, upsetting and just, sending someone into a spiral. So I don't want people to read it and not have the awareness of what the subject really is. But I do think, and from the early feedback that we've received, I think that a lot of people have been really touched by it and felt the sense of oneness with the community, just knowing that other people have seen and understand what they're going through.
We have some questions in chat, but I think we should give priority to the people who are able to be in the room with us. Obviously, there's so much happening in the world, so not physically being here is not any less of a show of love for Chandra and the people who are here. But if anyone in the audience has more questions, please shoot. While they think, Gray has asked, does it feel real yet?
I got tagged just today by someone else who was like, oh, we talked about this before, and it's, I saw that your release day was just a couple days ago, and I'm getting my copy now. And I keep seeing stuff like that, or somebody I didn't know tagged me and was like, next to I think the Kennedy Ryan book, and I was like, just falling out of my chair just a little bit. I was like,
I love that. And you had shared a while ago when your book had been added to a Goodreads list by a reader, and that was exciting.
yes.
So I love celebrating all these little milestones with you. We're at a Barnes and Noble, so I won't say the name of another big retailer, but people were buying it, which was like super exciting to see. Regina wants to know if there's going to be a sequel.
I don't know. I don't know.
If you're asking whether or not another sequel will be published, she has to write it first, and then I have to read it before we can answer that. She's currently working on another thriller, this time co-authored. You have a little Easter egg as a nod to Down the Well by Veronica King. Veronica King is the other Inimitable Books author who you're incredibly close to. In this new book you're writing with her, will there be a nod to Abby?
Yes.
Very exciting. There are some other questions. Okay, Natalie asked, did the research that you did, oh, she specified later research, so I'm assuming there were multiple rounds of research that maybe I wasn't aware of. Did any of what you found change Abby's methods throughout your drafts?
No, I think it had me go in and explain more or add more details. There were a few things that I wrote that it was plausible, but it was vague enough that I felt like it could be confusing, or it might be like, you sure about that? So I wanted to go in and find specific cases to say, yes, I am sure about that. It has happened before. Does it happen often? No. Is it likely? No, but it has happened before.
Yeah, you want it grounded in the real world because unfortunately this book is.
Yes.
And you are not thinking of crimes that have never been happened before, or people just guessing and being, oh, what if blank happened?
Right. And I that was intentional. I wanted to be very real world with it because I felt like so much stuff does happen, like you said. There's no need to make something up and pretend when there are people that these kinds of things have happened to, and we know that.
Did you pull from any real headlines, not as I'm copying and pasting, but did you go searching for any real life instances, or were you just like being on the internet at all lately gives you more than you want?
I didn't search for any specific cases. I found specific cases as I was doing research. The contexts were very different, but there were some specific cases that I was like, oh, like I thought that I was just mixing together some things that have happened in separate instances, but there are instances that are very similar.
Gotcha. Regina asked how many readers have remarked on how cathartic your book is. I think that's a little bit hard to quantify. I know I did. My mom also did, even though you definitely shocked her with that second one. I know Amara has in her Goodreads review. Like a powerhouse in the literary world. But I don't remember them using the word cathartic. JC had a lovely review, which I'm not sure if I've shared with you yet. I also don't remember her saying like cathartic or specifically that being a theme in her review, but she certainly loved the book. So Regina, well, I would love to have a numerical answer for you. I don't, beyond the names that I said.
Yeah, I've had a couple friends say that to me specifically, but I don't think I've seen it written or posted somewhere.
Yeah, I think Amara's and Regina's are maybe the only ones that publicly have said it.
Yeah.
It also takes bravery on the side of the reader to say, like, I'm a victim of abuse and I feel seen by this book. Because not everyone wants to share that.
Yes. And I that's something, you know, a reason for the content warnings and stuff. I don't want to put anyone in that position. And I definitely understand people who are not comfortable leaving a review. While they are appreciated and very helpful, you know, just saying, hey, to your friends, your close friends who know you or you're comfortable sharing that with, that they might enjoy it. That's also helpful. But I definitely don't want anyone in a position where they feel like they have to say that to recommend the book.
I mean, even for the end of the book, we wanted to put in resources to help people who might be real life people that if Abby existed, she would be helping. And we talked a lot about how to do that because, well, the book description makes it clear what Abby does if someone were reading the book and they were not safe at home. You know, we wanted it to not specifically say, like, oh, if you're in this specific situation, this is how you get out of it, because that can be dangerous. And we did a QR code instead, and you know, we were very sensitive.
Yeah. And that's it. That is important to say. There are people who are qualified and specialize in helping people in those situations. I'm not one of them. You can see that, you know, the way that I suggest Abby deals with it. It's not legal or recommended.
We might dream.
But yeah, I definitely want to promote people go to resources, the appropriate resources for help if they need help.
JC is asking, is there any potential for us to get a bigger book about Priscilla's story, like a prequel? I don't want to give away some of the stuff that we talked around earlier in the interview for people who haven't read the book yet, haven't had that amazing light bulb moment that Amara was live texting me as she was reading the book and being like, oh my God. You know, we don't want to rob any readers of that, but would you, if not go back in for a sequel, because circumstances do change for Abby by the end of the book, would you go back and do a prequel? And if so, would it be from a character that we met like Priscilla? Would it be more from Abby as a child, maybe, even if she like doesn't fully understand stuff, a little bit more like, you know, Grandma's Little Secret, the inimitable books title that came out before you, or would it be from maybe the point of view character from the bonus scene, or would you like to dive right into the evil mastermind's head?
I would have to think about that. I have ideas for either way. I think that
This
could
is
be-
not a confirmation, Regina. You can get excited, but it is not a confirmation.
No, this is definitely off the cuff. I do have, just even from hearing the question, I do have a couple ideas of a different characters who could have a great perspective and go more into the story, especially since as I was writing, I did write some backstory for certain characters and scenes that did not go into the book. So I do have that in my notes that I could go back to kind of springboard into something.
Well, if you cover the character of the judge, who's mentioned throughout the book, I know a judge, former judge, for copy editing purposes, would be like, what's true, what's not.
I'll just say keep them on speed dial.
You have people in your family who are in the medical field, and it said that on the release day live stream. Did they do any fact checking for you, or you're like, I don't want them to see the book before it's finished?
I did not give the book to my aunt. She does want to copy. I'm procrastinating a little bit.
Well, and I have no excuse because you've told me.
Yes. But no, I did my aunt practiced law as well as she is a nurse. So
I can't imagine all those years of school.
I guess yeah. If I missed anything, she would let me know.
It's like, maybe if we do a reprint.
Yeah. No, I didn't ask anybody in those regards. I did do a lot of research. I looked up some medical journals and things like that, and I read several articles in Carter and Hull. Some of it's, you can't actually access the full article unless you're in med school. But as much as I could, I wanted it to be factual.
Yeah. Let's see. JC says, yes, that gives me hope. Saying you have ideas.
I also did, not from someone who has reviewed it or left a review publicly, but someone I'm close to who asked me, and she did say the only thing she was mad at me for is that it wasn't longer. So
I did consider asking you to make it longer, but I thought you got in and you got out, and it kind of goes back to the not being gratuitous with the violence of what's happening. And it is a thriller, so we don't want to slow down the pacing too much of the in-between bits. And you do need to decompress though for what this is. This isn't a normal thriller where it's like there's danger hanging over the main character's head as they're trying to survive. I mean, there are elements of that. Like obviously she's trying to evade the law. She's trying to be able to continue doing what she's doing. Her ticking clock is always like, how long does my victim have how long does my victim's victim have before it's too late to save them? But because it's a little bit different, how did you handle the pacing of them?
So I started by writing the crime, and then I wrote the punishment, and then I went back through and I thought it kind of like stitching everything together. That made it easier in the sense of like I got the really challenging parts out of the way early in the process, but then everything became like, how do I fold it all together and make it seamless and make sense? And then it got to be more of Abby. And so in those other parts where it's like Abby at work versus Abby when she's on her own. And that made it just like a kind of a mindset switch, almost like when you're writing different characters and you have to change the voice and you're going back and forth between voice. This was a lot easier because it was two different Abbies that I was writing.
Yeah, I mean, you do dip into other characters' voices when you're writing the notes that Abby receives. Did you do more backstory that doesn't end up on the page for the book? I mean, because obviously we see what Abby sees, but it's not like they just have started getting confused. They're so far in that they have finally built up the courage to write to Mother Mercy Industries, which is why Abby goes to them. So how'd you get into the heads of Corinne and Olivia and I can't say the third victim?
I didn't write a ton of background for them, but I did write the letters after I wrote the actual the crime part, and then the punishment. I went back and I wrote the letters afterwards. I think that helped get into their voice, but I spent a lot of time thinking about the characters before I started writing. So even the parts that didn't end up on the page, I have a lot like just in my head for each of the characters, what's going on with them, um, what they're interested in outside of this, what they like to do. One character specifically, I do have a lot of backstory on that isn't anywhere in the book, and that was just kind of thinking about even the name for the character and why they are where they are and what kind of puts them at risk.
You have the victims that she's saving, not the ones she's planning to target, as different ages. I don't want to say more of the differences because that would give away a little bit of who the third one asking for help is, and it's part of the fun of the book. But how did you deal with that? It's what they go through is traumatizing no matter what age it would be. But did you decide like because of the age, this is the type of abuse they're going to go through, or did you like how did you decide together?
Some of it was I'd say there's different events in my life where either I was a resource that was called in or things that I was aware of. And those were the kinds of, as a woman, those were the kinds of things that were happening around me at specific ages. And so the person who's in that position, the person who is the true victim in the story that Abby is trying to say, those archetypes are represented through each of the stories.
Veronica, I missed your question. I'm so sorry. And Regina had left a comment earlier, so I just want to say, Regina said, knowing that justice was being dealt made any triggers much easier to ignore because we had a hero, a female hero right there on the page. Yeah. I love, and Regina's a writer, so question will something as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see. Veronica came in And she said, what did you do for yourself after drafting each case Abby deals in sparkles with?
I mean, most of the time, I'll be honest, I was talking to Veronica. Sometimes it was, am I doing too much?
The answer is no.
And then other times I was just like, talking through my why and just kind of, I had to like really keep that front and center for myself. Because some of it was really awful to write. And there were definitely times where I'm like, am I a bad person because I can think of this?
It's like, again, no, because it's going against bad people.
Yes. And that was something that I had to remind myself as well. It's like, yes, I have a kind of creative approach to things, we'll say. And yes, it's a really dark place to go. But there are so many people who go to those dark places by themselves because they have no choice.
You've disappointed Veronica because she asked, you didn't give yourself a little treat?
I don't remember specifically, but my partner might be able to say more about how much ice cream I went through while he was writing this. And I will also say I did write a large part of this when I was at the beach. So that for me, that's
For the realism of those single, so technically 2 beach scenes in the book.
right.
After basic research, know what sand feels like.
Yeah.
Veronica says, how's it feel to be a Just Glasses, a powerhouse in the literary space? You missed me mention this earlier, but yes, Chandra, how does it feel?
I'll say my feet may never touch the ground again, and I might be living off that compliment till the end of time.
I love that for you when that came in, and it was like the first review I saw online of it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know who this person is. That's even better.
Exactly.
I can't put a face or username to this person. This is a stranger.
Yeah, I have no idea who that was, but thank you from the bottom of my heart.
JC said, no, Chandra, you are not a bad person. You are an amazing writer with a fascinating imagination. She says fascinating. I will add on. It's a little bit sick at times, but I love it.
Thank you.
JC finds it interesting that you wrote the letters after. Did you always plan to have letters be the way? I mean, I don't really know how else they would have been able to contact Mother Mercy Industries, but was that always the case?
Well, I thought about like emails, and I mean, yes, it varies how it comes in, but I knew it had to be a way that people would feel safe reaching out.
Yeah.
Something where they wouldn't be as traceable, as well as the Mother Mercy wouldn't be as traceable, as far as like how this got to where it was going.
You can't put it in a mailbox on the street.
Right. So I had to be creative with that. There are some details about how that would work. And a lot of that I actually looked at journalism and how journalists keep their sources safe and how they pass information. And so I took a lot of inspiration from that.
Okay, well, if they get another book, I'd like you to explore that more. Let's see. Oh, Tracy had another question for you. Oh, this is what happens. JC asked, Chandra, how hard was it for you to write this book? How much did you have to tap into your own emotions for this book? And then I'll add, did you catch yourself dissociating at any time?
I would have said no if you'd asked me a while ago, but given how much of this I don't remember, I'm going to say yes. There was some dissociation happening. As far as like tapping into it, some of the inspiration that I took was quite literally biblical. So
You quote the Bible. That was fun to see that there's a grammatical error in the King James version of the Bible.
yes, that is exactly as it appears in the King James version.
It irked me. I'll admit.
And I think I actually, when I was going through, I made a note to say,
Jack.
exactly where it was because I was like, hey, I know I'm creative with my grammar sometimes, but I'm not that
I
creative.
think I asked you and you had that ready to go.
Yeah. So part of it, I guess it's, it is descriptive from the Bible. Some of it was just, a little bit of do unto others from Abby's perspective. So
It's more like this is how you did unto others, so now I'm gonna do it unto you.
yeah, yeah,
If you wanted better, you should have been better.
exactly. I I also, when I say I do watch a lot of true crime. I grew up in Maryland around the time that Chandra went missing, and I felt a
That's
big
scary. Your name.
yes. And so I was young when that happened, and it was kind of a moment for me where that was the first time I ever followed a case, and it was just kind of like we had that connection, and I was checking on her to see when she would be found. And so it wasn't until much later that she was found. But there was a general cautiousness in the area, Rock Creek Park, all that area where you just didn't you thought very much about how you carried yourself and where you went and who you went with. And I think that's what initially captured me is I wanted somebody to keep looking for her. I wanted them to find her. I wanted her to be thought of always and often.
You've talked about how you were inspired by journalism and how they keep their sources safe. You have a bit in the book where Abby rightfully hates how one of her works of art crime scenes that she left on purpose um, doesn't refer to Corinne by name. It's only like, oh, so and so's widow. Was it always going to be like, I'm going to show how badly this is reported in real life because that's another form of trauma these victims have to deal with? Or were you like, I'm going to do this specifically because it'll be a sore point for Abby?
I think that was another unfortunate instance where I was drawing from reality because there's so many times people who commit heinous crimes, we are, as a collective, we're prone to remembering the name of the criminal and not the person that they harmed.
Yeah.
And those individuals get swallowed up, and it's just another form of erasure. And so I wanted to kind of pull attention to that, how much that would not just bother Abby, but how much it should bother all of us that we're so prone to remember the person who did this horrible thing. And in some cases, that's the whole reason they did it, right? Is because they want to be remembered. They want to be uh, notable.
You sent me that song that someone had written about. Like, yeah, do it for the fame. Infamy, but still fame of some sort. Did the Giselle Pellico case at all inspire that? Of the you definitely don't want to, you want to point out that people center the wrong person in these news reports.
I didn't actually find out much about that case until after I'd finished this, but I definitely think that Giselle is an amazing, inspiring woman and really, and I'm glad that we know her name.
Yes. Yeah. And that judge sucked because she was willing to forego privacy to expose these people who didn't want the press in. I'm sure Bobby would have a lot to say about that.
Yes.
JC said, yes, I did think the part of quoting the Bible was very intriguing and disturbing all at the same time. So cheers. Any other questions from the physical audience before we wrap up this Q&A part and you can get to signing the books?
Well, my main question was about what you went through emotionally writing about these events, but I think you've kind of answered that.
Do you want to add another spin on it or something? Something you haven't brought up before.
I think one reason I really appreciated the comments, the reviews, as well as the people who have come to me directly talking about it being cathartic is because it was cathartic for me to write. And so I am happy to hear when people say that that's what they walk away from this book with is that sense of comfort in the sense that they were heard and seen. And so that is what ultimately what I want people to walk away from Mother Mercy with.
Did you land on this title first?
This was a working title. I did not know that that was going to be the title.
Yeah, I heard it and I just fell in love with it. There are some inimitable books titles where I'm like, we need to change it for the market, or I did not understand this until I read the book, and that in just a general rule, you don't really want to do that because it can turn away too many people. But the title of Mother Mercy just was really striking. It reminded me of Lady Liberty, but it's like it's different. You have alliteration, which is always a little bit fun if it's not like too on the nose. And this, well, like, and it was a very strong letter. It was clear that I was like, I like saying this, Mother Mercy, and then it's in the book, Mother Mercy Industries. The book description tells us Abby's name, but no one writes a note asking for her help saying, Dear Abby, although that was a little joke that we laughed at because Abby's name was not originally Abby. So I thought Mother Mercy was great, the first and foremost. And then once we had the cover, I was just like, oh, it's interesting. People are gonna see this title, hear this title, and be like, what is that?
Yeah.
But were you like convinced I was gonna change it or something?
Yeah, well, with the flash fiction books, we workshopped for 1,000 words to get started. We workshopped that title and we went through many iterations. So I was like,
we beat that thing like half to death, and Simon & Schuster still came back to us and was like, can you change it?
yeah. So I'm like, I've got all the time in the world. This doesn't even matter. I'm just boop boop boop. That's my working title. Here you go. And then
Suddenly it's on the book cover, designed by
yeah,
Christian Stewart.
yeah. Christian did an amazing job because I gave him like very little to go on.
You're like, vibes and a prayer.
Yes. And he was like, I got this. And I was like, thank you.
We had a new person join us. So if you have any questions for the author before we wrap up and start signing, feel free to ask. But otherwise,
the inside cover brought me. I commented to the cashier person, the associate, he goes, oh, she's talking right down there. But whoever did this pulled me in. I'm like, oh, and the first thing I started mumbling, I have to keep writing, I was like, oh, is this a show? Is this true? Is there gonna be a movie about this?
I mean, we would love for a movie to happen
Yeah.
about this. We would be over the moon. But as of right now, we have no news.
Okay, well, it brought me in, brought me down,
Yeah.
so.
Look at that.
I'd love to hear that.
And then plus that, I'm reading the back one, and okay, at first I thought this was the main character, but this is you.
This is her. Yeah.
You work in IT?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Our IT director is retiring. Are you looking for a job now?
That depends.
Then I'm like,
What are the benefits?
must be, it's for the city of New York, I don't know, dude. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, this must be the main character. I'll give this as a present to the IT director, because he's going to retire soon.
I mean, the main character knows her IT. It is in the book early on. So your IT director might still get a kick out of it. There's also a disclaimer at the front of the book written by the author who's like, while IT is my job, I do not personally use it to commit crimes that are shown in this book. And you should not either. Which multiple readers have pointed out this funny, but also your author's note at the back is very poignant and very sensitive. And honestly, with that, we can wrap up this Q&A. And thank you to the live stream for being here and the comments that came in online. And Chandra, are you ready to sign some books?
I'm ready.
Yes. Okay. And stream.